Hello everyone. I wanted to do a video on a subject that I rarely discuss on this channel, and that is my main concern about Mormonism. Often when people talk about Mormonism or Mormons, they tend to bring up things like the Book of Mormon, whether or not it's historically accurate, whether or not Joseph Smith actually received golden plates from an angel and translated them. Mormons, in fact, will often dispute with non-Mormons about the Bible and whether or not it's accurate, because they believe the Bible's been copied and translated so many times it's not as reliable, when in fact that's what makes the Bible reliable. The Bible has thousands of copies of its ancient language texts and translations of those texts into other languages over thousands of years by identifiable people, places, and times, whereas the Book of Mormon doesn't have that kind of historical accuracy behind it. And there's not one single copy of the plates that Joseph Smith is said to have translated. The only thing Mormons have is the Anthon document, or the characters that they believe is the Anthon document that Joseph Smith wrote, that shows the characters of the Reformed Egyptian, that's nowhere near a complete copy of the plates he translated, and that is not accepted as an identifiable language, such as Reformed Egyptian, in any place on the planet. Linguistically, historically, culturally, there's no acceptance of Reformed Egyptian as represented by the characters or Anthon document, if you accept that's what it is, that it's a real language. And it's not even a complete text of the Book of Mormon. So the Bible is by far more textually, historically, and linguistically reliable than the Book of Mormon. Oftentimes issues will come up as well related to the activities that the Book of Mormon claims for prophets and even Jesus in North America. So these issues do come up and they are significant. But for me, they're not my main concern. Based on my experience, which includes working for Mormons, working with Mormons, associating in different places with Mormons at different times, and even some extended family who are Mormons, my main concern is money. Specifically, the love of money, which in the Bible, that both Mormons and non-Mormons who are Christians accept, teaches in 1 Timothy 6:10, the love of money is the root of all the bad things. Chrysa, panton, ton, kakon. The root, the source. It's where everything bad originates. And we know that Jesus himself was betrayed for money. He condemned the money lovers. And he taught that it would be easier for a rich person, a person with a lot of money, to get through the eye of a sewing needle than it would be to get into heaven. So when I see Mormon temples, I'm not going to speak specifically of chapels, but of the temples that cost millions, multi-millions of dollars to build. They're beautiful. They're spectacular. They cost millions of dollars to build. Highlighted in many cases, if not most, with a golden leaf covered idol of an angel usually based of hammered copper. Thousands of pounds, which at today's rate of copper would be about $4 a pound. So several $1,000s at a minimum, plus the gold leaf. That's a lot of money just for that one idol. Multi-millions of dollars just for that one temple building. I understand having a nice place to worship and gather together. But if you're spending that much money on places to worship and gather together, if you're putting idols like that on your places of worship, which while I realize you don't worship, you look to those idols as an indication of the coming of the Christ, the second coming. When in the Bible we're told to walk by faith, not by sight. We don't need an idol. Jesus' beloved disciple John warned us about idols. The Ten Commandments tell us the God-Jaw's view of idols. That's a lot of money for an idol and for a building where people gather together to worship the Son of God who didn't have very much money and who emphasized feeding the poor, selling your things and giving to the poor. And I realize we can't all sell all our things because then we would be poor and we would need money. But that's a lot of extra money you're putting into things for appearance sake when you could be using that money for better purposes. It's not just that. As I mentioned, I have a lot of experience and involvement with Mormons. I used to work for Mormons and with Mormons. And while the person that I worked for was a Mormon, and I believe was in many respects a good man, nevertheless, in the industry in which I worked for that man, in which I work right now, has a lot of Mormons. And what I have observed for over 10 years, going on 20, are a lot of Mormons working with criminals to steal money by overcharging insurance companies, by misrepresenting damages, or having criminals do it so they don't have to, but then benefiting nonetheless. I see a problem with money. And that might not be too surprising when you look at the history of Mormons in this country, because if you look, for example, at Las Vegas, there would be no Las Vegas as you know it without Mormon money. Mormons bankrolled Las Vegas and got the casinos going, established it as a place where people could keep going and gambling and other excesses that Mormons themselves don't accept. But they like the money. I encourage you to do a search and look at some videos on the history of Mormons in Las Vegas, and you'll see what I mean about Mormons and money, and Las Vegas, and casinos, and working with criminals, even where it concerns things they don't practice or accept themselves. And so when I see that, and I see Mormons working with criminals in my own industry, making it harder on people like me and others who are just trying to work for a living, settle claims, give people what they need so they can repair their property, restore their losses. When I see Mormons, as many Mormons as I see, and it's a lot, it's not everybody. I know a lot of great Mormons who don't do any of this kind of thing. Some of the best people I've ever met. But I also know a lot of others who are not some of the best people I've met because they're in love with money. They're compromising themselves for money. Their church, the Mormon church, wants them to give them money. So in one sense, they're almost pressured to come up with more and more money. And maybe that's not the way the church wants them to do it, but that's what I see happening. I see a lot of Mormons compromising themselves for money. And that's the concern that I have. Because if we can't get past that, if we can't get past the love of money so that it doesn't continue to provide a stumbling block for many, and it keeps you from giving people who are in need money because you want to have it to make these beautiful temples and these golden leaf covered idols, if it means that much to you that you'll work with criminals, that you'll help create a place for criminals, and that destroys a lot of non-criminals but who are weak because of money, and you help continue to provide places like Las Vegas casinos that you know and I steal people's money and give them little to nothing in return and destroy thousands, if not millions of lives, if we can't get past that, if we can't work together in an industry like insurance and constantly have to face this question of money related to excess estimates far beyond what is necessary, claims that are actually set up by criminals so that Mormons can come in and make money, if we can't get past that, and you interfering with people like me who are just trying to earn a living to make a little bit of money, what's the point of talking about the other stuff? It's the love of money that is the root, the source of all the bad stuff. So while I do agree that things like the historicity of the Book of Mormon and the Bible, and whether or not the things that each of them teach are verifiable, my main concern, Mormons, is this love for money. And I wanted to make this video to highlight that, because I know you hear a lot about all the other stuff. And I'm trying to help groups like you and the Watchtower that I used to belong to and that I still work with in terms of promoting the things I believe are correct. But it's time that we all address the things that we can correct. And where it concerns Mormons, the number one thing I think you can and should correct is the love you have for money.